Hey folks, welcome to another Passion for Sound audio review. And today we're taking a look at this little bundle of marketing here in the xDuoo Poke 2. Now I say it's a bundle of marketing because it's covered in these logos and designs. It's not exactly my cup of tea aesthetically, but I'm also willing to look past that and see if it performs well as an audio device. What the Poke 2 is it's a portable USB or Bluetooth DAC and headphone amp. So you can run this via USB or Bluetooth from your phone, laptop, tablet, etc. and theoretically enjoy high quality sound. So we'll talk in a moment about whether or not it performs that well. The first is to say a huge thanks to Appos for providing the unit for review. And the second is to let you know that as much as I know this would be a great product to compare to something like the iFi Hip DAC, I don't currently have access to iFi's products and therefore I can't do that comparison. So for those looking for it, I'm sorry, I do have a different comparison, a couple in fact in this review, but nothing to the iFi Hip DAC. With that out of the way though, let's take a closer look at the xDuoo Poke 2. The Poke 2, or maybe it's called the Poke A2, I'm not entirely sure, but either way the Poke 2 retails for $399 US, making it a fairly pricey unit for a portable device. That said, it's extremely feature packed, and so if the performance stacks up to the spec sheet, then it should be worth the money. As I said in the intro, what you're getting for your $390 US is a Bluetooth and USB DAC with also a powerful balanced headphone amp built in. The Poke 2 has Bluetooth 5.0, meaning it's low latency, and it also accepts LDAC and aptX HD codecs, so you're going to get the best possible Bluetooth transmission if you choose to use that, but then it's also got USB-C on the bottom to accept a wired input, and it comes with both a long USB-C cable, a short USB-C cable for connecting to a phone, and also a short lightning to USB-C cable. So it's fully featured in all the different connections you want, and whatever signal you feed it, it's going to be processed by a pair of CS43198 DAC chips from Cirrus Logic. Interestingly, that makes the DAC stage identical to the recently reviewed Moondrop Moonriver 2 dongle DAC, but as you'll hear me talk about, the sound quality is quite different. I haven't directly compared the Poke 2 to the Moonriver 2 in this review because it doesn't quite make sense to, but if you've seen my review of the Moonriver 2 in my recent Great Dongle Fondle, that's the second one, then you'll soon hear the distinction between how the Moonriver 2 sounded and how I think the Poke 2 sounds. But I'll get to that shortly. Before we get there, let's talk about a few more features of the Poke 2, and that is that the pair of DAC chips will allow you to decode DSD256, high sample rate PCM, and also MQA if you want it. According to xDuoo, the Poke 2 is compatible with Windows, Android, iOS, macOS, Switch, and PlayStation. There is no mention of Xbox, so I don't know how the Xbox works in terms of its sound output. Maybe there is a way to make it work with the Poke 2, but definitely all those others listed. To be clear, I've only tested the Poke 2 with Windows and Android, and it worked seamlessly in both cases. Having now covered off a lot of the internal specs though, let me give you a quick tour of the device itself and show you what else there is to talk about. First of all, as you can see, it's got a bit of thickness to it, and that's because it's got a fairly chunky battery inside. And the benefits of that are twofold. First of all, it means it's going to give you plenty of battery life when you're driving your headphones with it. I used this driving full-sized headphones for well over 4 or 5 hours the other day, and it still had plenty of charge. So battery life is excellent, and what that also means, because it's got so much juice, is that it can also act as a power bank too. So if you find yourself running a bit low on power in your smartphone, you can plug it into the Poke 2 and actually deliver some charge out of the Poke 2 and into your phone. So that's a pretty cool feature, and it's done as a two-way output-input from the charging socket on the bottom. It's also worth noting as we talk about the bottom panel, there are a couple of interesting features here. First of all, you've got separate data and charging sockets, so you've got the charging in-out USB-C and you've got the data in USB-C. That's fantastic because it means you can drive the audio signal without having any sort of noisy power coming through, and therefore theoretically get the best possible sound from the USB-C connection. In addition to having the data in and the power in and out though, there's also a little tiny switch for flicking the device between USB 1 and USB 2. If you're not familiar with those terms, that's the protocol used to transmit the USB data. There are some devices that will very happily use USB 2, but others such as gaming consoles which might require USB 1, and so by having that very simple switch there, you can quickly flick the device back and forth to get it to do what you need it to. Moving on from the bottom panel, we've got a very clean side on one side, and on the other we've got a whole lot of buttons. We've got some very obvious inclusions such as power and up and down volume, but then we've got an EQ button, which I'll come back to in a second, and also a Bluetooth button. So the Bluetooth button is for doing things like triggering pairing, etc. And the EQ button allows you to step through multiple different EQ functions. There's no calibration or changing those EQs, they're all presets only, but it's nice to have the flexibility should you want to use it. I've personally stuck with no EQ applied, but there's no reason not to have a play with those and see which one suits you. There are presets for things like bringing the vocals forwards, for movies, for games, so you can really play around with it and see what suits your taste and your specific needs at the time. Now you'd probably think that this run of buttons down the side was enough, but xDuoo weren't finished there, there's more buttons on top. So on the top panel here, we've got things like a button to switch between the two filter modes. We've got your input selection button and also a button to switch between high and low gain. And I'll talk more about the power in a moment, but it's really nice that you've got high and low gain if you want to use this with IEMs and then full-sized headphones. Finally, along the top panel here, we've got a 3.5mm output and a 4.4mm balanced output, and the Poke 2 is a fully balanced device. So you've got the two DAC chips, meaning that you're separating the left and right channels into individual chips, and then it's outputting a proper balanced signal, should you care about that, via the 4.4mm output. Finally, the last feature or physical design thing to talk about before we get into sound and power and stuff like that is that on the front of the device, you've also got a display. You've also got a bunch of fingerprints for me holding it, so do be aware of that. The glass front and back panels can show some fingerprints. But other than that, you've got this nice little clean display. It's not particularly big, but it's also therefore going to be quite power efficient. And that tells you things like the volume you're on, which gain level you're on, the sample rate coming through, whether you're on the USB or the Bluetooth input. It's actually quite an informative display, despite being quite small. And so from a physical design point of view, from a feature point of view, I really like what the Poke 2 is doing. As I said, I don't particularly like all the branding and the cartoon designs on it, but I do like the colour scheme, and I think it feels and functions as a high quality device. That of course begs the question of how it sounds, and part of that question is also what can you drive with it. So let's start by talking about power output. I often get asked for recommendations on the channel for specific products at specific price points. And so what I've done to help is produce this database. If you take a look at the description box in any of my videos, you'll find a section that says Passion for Sound Recommends. You might need to click the More button to see it, but it's always in the description. Clicking on the Passion for Sounds Recommends link will take you through to this database and give you a chance to see all of the different products that I've recommended over the years. The Airtable database contains a heap of information, but so that it's not overwhelming, I've set it up in such a way that you can filter it to look at just the sorts of products you're looking for. Let's say you're looking for a headphone, you can select that in the filter list and see all of the headphones that I recommend ordered by price from lowest to highest. You can also use the filter and sort buttons in different ways to better suit your searching needs, so feel free to play around with it as much as you like, it won't affect what other people can see. The idea was to make a resource for you that allows you to quickly and easily find the types of products at the budget that you're looking for. Once you've found products that you're interested in, you'll also notice that there's links next to each of the products that will take you to various retailers and manufacturers. So you might find links to places like Apos Audio in USA and Canada, or Amazon links to the USA, Australia, Canada and the UK, or global links to places like Massdrop, Linsol, Hi-Fi Go, or the manufacturers themselves such as Virum Audio, Jashelli Labs and ZMF Headphones. Some of these links are affiliate links, but certainly not all of them, and it's definitely not a criteria to get on this list. These are just products that I recommend, and whilst your support via affiliate links is always appreciated, it's absolutely not expected and also does not influence whether a product makes it onto this list. The list is always evolving, growing and changing, so do check back regularly if you're looking for something new, and I hope you find this a useful resource. For now though, let's get back to the review. The Poke 2 can output 700 milliwatts into 32 ohms, which is a really good amount for a portable device. It's also way more than you need for most headphones, and the Poke 2 can and will drive any headphone I can think of that doesn't require an external energizer like an electrostatic. Of course, it could feed an electrostatic energizer, but my point is it will directly drive any other headphone I can think of. To put that into context, it will drive a Hyperman Sesvara, albeit not to the best possible quality levels, and it will also drive headphones like the Dan Clark Audio Aeon 2 Noir, which has been one of my go-to testing devices with the Poke 2. To put things more into perspective though, let me list off for you some headphones and the gain and volume levels that was required to drive them to comfortable but loud comfortable listening levels. Starting with the aforementioned DCA Noir, I was running in high gain with that and the volume was sitting at about 60%. There are 100 different volume steps, so in other words it was 60 out of 100. Something like the 300 ohm ZMF Atrium was pretty similar to the Aeon Noir, and that was sitting at about 58 volume, also in high gain. The Sesvara that I mentioned before, one of the most difficult to drive headphones on the planet, that was reaching comfortable but loud listening levels at about 70 to 75 in high gain. So it is starting to push the amplifier a little bit harder than I like. I tend to like to keep amplifiers running at around about 2/3 to maybe 3/4 of their potential, so there's plenty of headroom and therefore minimum distortion. And that's where I'm saying the Sesvara does start to stretch that a little bit, but it did still sound fine. It's just never going to sound as good as a proper desktop setup that a headphone at that level, that sort of flagship tier headphone, really deserves. And I'd say exactly the same about easier headphones. So something like a Focal Utopia, I also wouldn't expect you to get the best performance out of the Poke 2 because it's not a high-end desktop type setup. There are compromises we make to get things into a small package when you're combining the DAC and the headphone amp into a tiny package like this, a relatively tiny package. And so the takeaway message from this is that the Poke 2 has enough power to drive any headphone that you're likely to want to run with it. The good news though is it's also great with IEMs. By flicking to low gain mode, you can plug in something like a Sennheiser IE900 and that was happily purring along at about 40 on the low gain volume range. So whether it's super sensitive IEMs or slightly power hungry headphones, the Poke 2 definitely will have you covered. I should mention that all my testing was using the balanced output, which is more powerful than the single-ended, so do keep that in mind. If you are looking to drive something that's a bit more power hungry, it is going to be worth having a 4.4mm cable for it, so you can run it from the balanced outputs. But now that we know that the Poke 2 can drive anything you're going to throw at it, let's find out how it sounds. I tested the Poke 2 with a whole bunch of different IEMs and headphones, and with the IEMs I used, the background was absolutely dead silent. And then regardless of whether I was using IEMs or headphones, what I heard from the Poke 2 was a very clean sound, a generally uncoloured sound, but a sound that's quite smooth. It's not sterile or overly crisp, it's just a smooth, very, very natural sound, and I mean all of that in the best possible way. There's a good sense of articulation, and there's definitely plenty of texture, but the sound is delivered in a way that doesn't over-enhance anything, it doesn't make anything aggressive, it's very easy to listen to for long periods, but it's still got all of the texture and detail that I would absolutely expect for a product at this price point. The soundstage has decent width, a tiny bit of depth, and everything's pretty well focused in terms of the image, but also maintaining a good sense of coherency, meaning that everything sounds like it belongs together, things aren't over-separated or overly compressed together. Basically, I think the xDuoo Poke 2 is a really good balance of smoothness with detail, not being overly sterile, but also being uncoloured. It's one of those devices that you pretty much don't even realise it's in the source chain. Yes, it is the whole source chain in some ways, but it's not like when you plug this in you go, gee, that's a lot warmer than I expected, or that's a lot cooler than I expected, or I'm hearing this, or I'm hearing that, that's different to other devices. It just kind of disappears and gives you the music, and I think that's fantastic. But as is always the case, particularly with source devices, I think it's always good to have some sense of context to see how it's performing in relation to other products that you might know, or other products that you might consider around the same price. Now, I don't have anything in my collection that's directly comparable to the Poke 2, but I looked through what I do have, and I thought, what about if you were just looking to spend around about that $400 mark, and you were mostly going to be using it as a wired device? What if you bought a dongle and a portable headphone amp to do the same job as the Poke 2? And so I pulled out the very excellent EMN Eagle dongle, which is just a very simple USB-C dongle with a 3.5mm output. I maxed out the volume on that, or almost maxed it out, and sent a line out from the Eagle into the Topping NX7 headphone amp. This combination of the Eagle and the NX7 delivers more power than the xDuoo, because the NX7 can output 1.4 watts into 32 ohms. Having said that, there is absolutely no need for more power than what the Poke 2 can deliver, and so that's not entirely relevant, but I thought I'd mention it for those that care. It's also worth mentioning, of course, that by having a dongle and a headphone amp, you've got more devices and therefore more wires. Instead of one simple USB cable from your phone or your computer into the Poke 2, now we've got a cable from the phone or the computer into the Eagle, another cable from the Eagle into the NX7. So things are a bit more clumsy, but for some people it's all about sound quality and the extra cables aren't a problem. And so I compared the sound from both setups to see just how much of a sacrifice, if any, we're making for the convenience of the Poke 2's all-in-one form factor. For this test, one of the tracks I used was Full Steam by David Gray featuring Annie Lennox, and I was listening to the Harmonic Dyne G200 headphones. These are a new planar magnetic headphone from Harmonic Dyne, makers of the Poseidon and the Zeus, and I have to urge you to stay tuned for this review. They're a really interesting headphone, there are things I hate about them, and things I absolutely love. So if you've got any interest in headphones at all, do hit the subscribe button because I think you might want to hear about the G200s. For now though, let's focus back on the source chain I was using for the G200s, being the Eagle and the X7 versus the xDuoo Poke 2. From the Eagle NX7 setup, what I heard was a sense of greater weight and presence in the vocals. And I don't mean that it got thicker, it was just more rounded and full-bodied, and there was still plenty of texture, plenty of detail on top. To me, with the G200s, it made both David Gray's and Annie Lennox's vocals, so we've got a male vocal and a female vocal, both to me sounded more lifelike and more tangible from the dongle and headphone amp setup. In comparison, the Poke 2 did come across as just being a little bit artificial sounding. In isolation, I never noticed that about the Poke 2, but when you put it up next to a combo like the NX7 and the Eagle, I did start to hear that there's a little bit of a trade-off going on. And by the way, just to be completely clear, both of these tests are with USB-C connections between my Android smartphone and the devices being used. So it's not like I'm comparing Bluetooth and a wired connection here, they're both fully wired connections. After playing around with more and more tracks with these different combos, I definitely felt like the NX7 and the Eagle was giving me a more organic, lifelike and natural sound. It's not to say the Poke 2 was bad, but it did highlight the fact that the Poke 2 is not quite as good as the maximum possible performance that I think you can get for the price. That said, if you were to offer me both setups, I think it's the Poke 2 that I'd reach for because it's not that far behind and the convenience factor is so much better. You've got Bluetooth with this, you've got one box only, and you've got things like EQ, filter changes, etc. And so really what this test showed me was that if you don't care about the convenience of a single box solution, then you can do a bit better with something like the Eagle and the NX7, but the difference is so minimal that I would personally take the convenience every single time. I have absolutely no interest in strapping together an Eagle, an NX7 and my smartphone when I can just pick up the xDuoo Poke 2 and get 95% of the way there. Maybe a bit less than 95, maybe it's 92%, but the point is, it's really, really close. And so having proved to myself that the Poke 2, whilst a slight compromise in sound quality, is very, very good, my next thought was, what if it's someone looking at buying this, maybe instead of buying a desktop device? Maybe you're looking at taking this to an office and you've got the option to commute with this, but it's mostly going to be used as your desktop unit. I was curious to see if you'd be better off spending a tiny bit more money and getting yourself a full desktop unit. The specific desktop unit I reached for was the Topping DX5. And the reason I chose the DX5 was that it cost about $50 more than the Poke 2, but it has almost all the same features. It's got Bluetooth with LDAC and aptX HD, it's got plenty of power output, and it's still a compact all-in-one device, albeit not a portable one. And so just to reiterate, the reason I'm making this comparison is that some people might be looking at the Poke 2 thinking about using it mostly as a desktop device. And for me that begged the question of whether or not you're better off to split services, spend a bit of extra money, get yourself a really good desktop, and then get a separate portable device. And so pitting the two of these against each other, being the Poke 2 and the DX5, I was still using the G200 headphones, and this time one of the tracks that I focused on was Moon Over Bourbon Street by Sting from the Live in Berlin album. Jumping between the two, and again this was a fully wired test, this is not with the Bluetooth, what I found from both setups being fully wired was that the soundstage from the Poke 2 was noticeably smaller than the DX5. Separation, clarity, micro details, so basically all of that textural and positional and soundstage space information was all better from the DX5. And that's generally what I would expect from a full-size desktop device using 240 volt power. Sometimes battery supplies can produce better power, but I normally find that the extra amount of space available for extra componentry and more flexibility in engineering approaches for desktop units that generally translates to better sound, and it stays true with the DX5. One particular area where the differences stood out between the two devices was at around the 140-minute mark in Moon Over Bourbon Street. Sting's singing very close to the mic, and the mic's picked up all sorts of wind noise type sounds coming from his mouth. From the Poke 2, you can hear those sounds, but they're more clearly defined and resolved when you listen to it on the DX5. Now, in some cases, you might say it's better from the Poke 2 because you're not distracted by those sounds as much, whereas others will say the DX5 is giving you the true quality of the recording and letting you hear everything that was there to be recorded. I'm not going to make a call either way on which one's better or worse, but what I can tell you is the DX5 is definitely extracting more detail, and to me it's the one that does sound like the better overall sound quality. Because this is an orchestral recording with a full-sized orchestra backing Sting, what you also notice from the DX5 compared to the Poke 2 is that there's a better sense of separation of the individual sections of the orchestra. So whilst it's still all very coherent, you can better hear where everything's placed. And that comes back again to a better sense of space, a better sense of imaging and focus. To me, the DX5 is just a clearly better sounding device. But of course that brings us back around to what you're looking for. If you don't need portability and you're looking for the best possible sound quality and you can stretch your budget a tiny bit, then I think the DX5 is clearly better. But if portability is key, if you do want the one device that's maybe your desktop system at work and your portable system when you're commuting, then the Poke 2 is excellent. The fact that it is going almost toe-to-toe with the DX5 and almost toe-to-toe with that clumsy dongle and headphone amp system that I tried before, the fact that it's doing that from a nice compact all-in-one device is fantastic. So don't get to this point and think that I'm knocking the Poke 2 in any way. What I was seeking to do was put it into context, and that context tells me that for the money you're paying and the versatility you're getting, the Poke 2 is fantastic. It performs really well, it's generally uncoloured and clean, it gives you a sense of smoothness but still plenty of texture, so everything's going to sound pretty good from it, and it's doing all of that while also giving you the convenience of a wireless connection through Bluetooth. That's wireless from your source device, not to your headphones. But it's giving you the ability to have your transport disconnected. You could have the Poke 2 in your pocket and have your laptop somewhere while you're walking around the house doing things and still enjoying sound. Or of course you could plug it in and get the maximum sound quality whilst only worrying about one box. Add to that the EQ, the filter choices, the ability to charge your phone if you're running short on power, and I think the Poke 2 is a great little device. Admittedly, it doesn't set my world on fire for sound quality, but it doesn't let me down at all either. Being able to plug your existing high-quality headphones or earphones into a device like this is going to be a big upgrade over most of the wireless headphones or true wireless earphones that I've tried at least, and so I would definitely choose to have something like a Poke 2 in my pocket with a pair of high-quality wired headphones or earphones before I'd reach for a true wireless setup, unless I needed the true wireless of course. But if I'm just around the house, the Poke 2 plus a great set of earphones or headphones is absolutely brilliant. And so if you're in the market for a portable, Bluetooth and or wired device with internal battery, plenty of power, the ability to run a balanced connection for headphones or earphones, I think the Poke 2 should absolutely be on your list. Other devices like say the Earman Calibri, which I don't have here anymore unfortunately, they offer probably better sound quality, but they don't have things like Bluetooth. And so the Poke 2, for its versatility and its sound quality, I think is a great choice. If that sounds interesting to you, I'll put a link down below through to Appos, and I thank you for any and all purchases through there because it really helps to support the channel. For those of you outside the US and Canada, I'll also see what other links I can find, so if the xDuoo Poke 2 sounds good to you, I'll pop some links down below, go check them out and see what you can find. As always, I hope you found this review useful and helpful, and if you have, I'd love it if you hit the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already. For now though, let me leave it to the music, so happy listening and I'll see you here next time on Passion for Sound.